And we are live on a Wednesday night, the K&K Sports Show with the cast of characters. Only 3 minutes late. Was a little trickery getting home today from a union meeting. But boys, glad everybody's here tonight. Let's start with opening comments. I'll start with Mr. Paul Rosen.
Good evening, gentlemen. Good evening, fans. Glad to be here. Been a little crazy the last couple of weeks for myself and family, but we're glad to be here tonight.
Mr. Carson Shear.
What's up, guys? How we doing? Looking forward to the show tonight, and yeah, got some good games to talk about. Looking forward to it.
I got to tell you this. Jenny Hoops is a big fan of your Lions now. She had T.J. Hawkinson last week, and he put a big one up fantasy football. So Jenny Hoops has won 2 in a row. Mr. Ryan
killed me.
I benched Jared Goff, but I still ended up winning in our league by 3 points. I don't know how I did it, but thanks to Mike Evans, I beat Mr. Scoop.
Nice.
But I'll let him go.
Mr. Scoops, talking about Mr. Scoops, what's going on? And have you recovered last night from 62, Mr. Ryan Scoops?
That was incredible. I actually, of course, missed the home run because I was ordering a calzone, but I was able to go back and find it, and it was obviously wonderful, and got to show it to my mom when she got home. But no, it's looking forward to the show tonight, talking some NFL, some MLB, whatever else we come up with. It's going to be a fun time.
And last but not least, you know what? I'll go first, Kenny, because I think I'm the hardest on Aaron Judge at all, but I'm going to get into a little thing about that later, Kenny. I'm not sure if you'll be around, but a tip of the cap. Great season, Mr. Judge, but now the real season begins in 2 weeks. And hey, I'm just going to say this. Mets Braves, that's going to be a great series, Paul, but we'll get into that in a little bit. And Mr. Kirkpatrick, last but not least.
Doing well. Thanks, guys, for being here. Looking forward to a nice, fun-filled show. I do want to update everybody or everybody on the show. I spoke to you all, and Sis is going to be taking a little break from Wednesdays. Nothing major, nothing, just a much-needed break. But he will be with us strong on Thursdays for Wits and Wagers. So just wanted to update everybody out there who's listening. Everything's good. Just wants a little break, and he'll be with us on Thursdays.
Sounds good. All right, Mr. Kirkpatrick, where do you want to begin?
We got a lot to talk about. We got NFL, we got baseball, we got college football. Let's do a quick NFL recap. We'll start with that. And want to get into something serious to start the show off. And it had to do with the Dolphins-Bengals. The Bengals ended up winning. 2-game win streak now. The Super Bowl runner-up, the Super Bowl loser, they're back now, maybe 2 in a row. But the more important thing was an injury that happened to Tua Tagovailoa. We all know by now, through the news, if you didn't watch the game, from all the headlines what happened. But I just want a quick thoughts, anything that you want to add to this. And we'll go to Ryan, and then anybody else who wants to add on about the injury, we can add on. So in a couple minutes, or about a minute or less, if you could just let us know what you're thinking about the Tua injury and going forward, what the NFL should do.
Right. So just brief recap. Of course, if you didn't see the game, you probably know by now that there was a defensive lineman from the Bengals. I think his last name is Polo. Who sacked Tua Tagovailoa. He went down. Now, again, he was playing in the game on Thursday, 4 days after suffering what was believed to be a concussion, or at least to be an injury similar to a concussion. Just 4 days prior, he did get cleared. One of the doctors who was involved in that process has now been terminated. But obviously, the player going down and then putting up that fencing response that we saw, just a terrifying incident. And people have spoken out. Tom Brady has spoken out. The neuropathologist from the famous movie Concussion, Dr. Benenamolo, spoke out and said he doesn't believe Tua Tagovailoa should ever play another down of football again. So obviously, this is a serious. The NFL has tried to, or to an extent at least, seems to have tried to bring this more into the forefront as it's become more and more has become known about this type of injury and this type of situation and the risks that are posed by playing football. But it's this was not something that I think a lot of people believe should have happened, not just because of the hit, but more because of the way that his care from Sunday to Thursday was handled.
Thanks, Ryan. Let's go to Paul. You want to add anything? Like, what were your thoughts, real quick, Paul? Like, scary injury.
I, I,
I'm going to you first, not because you've
yeah.
seen more. And I don't mean this in a bad way. Like Kurt and I are in our 40s, but then you got Ryan and Carson in their 20s. You've seen NFL in the 70s and 80s before concussions. So like, what now that they're got these protocols? Like, what are your thoughts? Like overall thoughts. Like you've seen, a lot of safety precautions here, and who dropped the ball? Was it the doctor? Was it the team? Like what happened here?
Well, if you go back to the 70s, 80s, the when men were men and they played football, and regardless of how they were hit, they went to the sidelines and then they were brought right back in because it was a win at all costs. And I think finally people and doctors realize, hey, wait a minute, we've got to take a step back here. But I think this win at all costs by management, by players, even themselves, I think they've gotten to the point where they could sometimes be their own worst enemy. And I think somebody has to be able to take the ball and say, okay, enough is enough. There was a death years and years ago in the NFL. Actually, it was the Detroit Lion player that got hit, and he died on the field. And I think that's what's going to happen. Players now are bigger, faster, stronger than ever before. And God forbid someone gets into a situation where that's going to happen again. What is the NFL going to do? Are they really going to look at themselves and say, oh, well, that's just an accident? And that's what's waiting to happen, unfortunately. Someone, whether it's Goodell, whether it's someone else that's representing the Players Association, is going to have to step up and say, this has got to be handled. 3 days after the incident with Tua, Cameron Brate, the tight end for the Bucs, was allowed to come back on the field after supposedly he suffered a possible concussion. So with everyone yelling and screaming about Tua, here it is, only a couple of days later, Brate is allowed to come back on the field. Somebody has got to put their foot down and say, enough is enough.
Thanks, Paul. Carson, want to add to this, situation?
Yeah, no, I agree with what Paul and Ryan were saying. Obviously, enough is enough, and it's getting ridiculous. And I think the what Paul was saying earlier, how like that whatever it takes to win mindset. I think we as fans judge the coaches and players. He's fine, play him, because if we don't play him, we're going to lose the game. But there's obviously more things that are bigger than football, and you got to make sure 100% sure that a player is safe to play when he walks out on that field, because like Paul just said, Tua could have been seriously hurt, and thank God he wasn't. They're saying he should be fine, but it could have been a much worse situation. And you saw it from some signs when they played Buffalo, how he was he started to get back up, and he was wobbling and losing his balance, and just everything from there just all pointed signs to why he shouldn't be on that field. But yeah, like I said, obviously, hopefully a speedy recovery for him. And the NFL has to do more precautions when they look at this, because it's not okay.
I agree. Kurt, can I go first?
Yeah. I just want to read a comment from Keith real quick. They had to hide Hines Ward helmet to make sure he didn't come back into a game after a concussion. Amazing that all that helmet technology the NFL invested in hasn't helped more than apparently apparently has.
I'll do mine I'll try and get mine done in a minute. I segue right into what I wanted to say. If you all watch preseason, like not preseason games, but practices in preseason, the players had these special helmets.
The foam.
With padding, the foam on them. I don't care what you look like on the field. If it's going to protect the player, wear it. Who cares what it looks like? Especially the quarterback, especially the wide receivers, the ones that are getting hit. You know, they the ones that should be wearing it. And why at practice, where a lot of the practices you're not getting hit? It's not full hit prep, full contact practice. Why aren't you wearing it in a game? It's showing that it's successful. Try it in the games. Who cares what it looks like? It looks stupid. Who cares? The other thing I wanted to bring up, Kurt, on your All In show yesterday, you had a question on your high school show that you do with Jen. A parent or high school kid gets sent to the locker room with a head injury. Are you all in or all not all in on them coming back in?
Yep.
They shouldn't come back in with a head injury regardless. You should go get checked at a hospital. If you got a head injury, save the privacy of this individual. Kurt and I coached years ago, Pee-wee level. Kid got hit in the helmet, and he ended up having a blood clot in his head, and we did not know about that.
Yep,
and if we would have sent him back out there, who knows what the consequences would have been. So it starts from the bottom up, and the hospitals have the equipment and the technology. I know they say the stadiums have it, but go to a hospital. Head injury, I don't care what it is. You get sent with a head injury, send them to the hospital, get checked out. They get cleared by the hospital, then they can come back. That's my thoughts. Kurt, why don't you finish this off?
Yeah,
and then
real quick, just like I said to you, I agree with you, Kenny. Any head injury, like that's it. You're done for the game. There's no more check it out. Like you're saying, can you come back in? I mean, people are coming back in for like, they're making career decisions. Like if I don't, if I don't go, then my backup's going to get my job. It should just be head injury there, head injury and you're out. But here's the thing. And I know it might sound a little crazy, but I don't really remember the Tua play, but I don't remember like, didn't he kind of like roll him over and like toss him at the end? Like, I think the NFL has to get harder with penalties. And what that means is, and not every I mean, I'm not going to say anytime a quarterback gets sacked and he's going to hit his head, then that should be a 15-yard penalty. No, but you do see a lot of them where, there's a tackle, instead of just wrapping them up, putting them down, they're throwing them down. And that should be where, hey, say, I'll just throw a Bronco name. Bradley Chubb does that to, Patrick Mahomes. Mahomes is out 4 weeks. And I've always said this. Chubb, you're out 4 weeks. You're not paid for those 4 games. That's the only way those players are going to do it. And listen, it's going to be hard because you're going to have to review tape and stuff like that. But if it's a personal foul and that guy gets a head injury and he's out for 6 weeks, that defender should be out for 6 weeks with no pay. That's, 15 yards is nothing. It's nothing. What's 15 yards? If you tell me I'm playing Patrick Mahomes for 15 yards, I'm going to knock Mahomes out. Are you going to do it? I mean, some people might. Some people might. So
quick yes or no answer when you're done, Kurt.
I'm good.
Yes or no. I'll start with Kurt. Just a yes or no. Should the NFL have a target in like the college? You target, you're
100%.
out. Ryan.
Absolutely.
Carson.
Yeah, got to protect the players.
Paul.
Clean sweep.
But
I'm going to agree, and I'm going to say what you said, Kurt. If you tackle somebody and you throw them to the ground, and that's kind of personal foul, you're out of the game.
You're right. And then you're out 3 weeks. He's out 3 weeks. That's the only way it's going to stop. Not just 15-yard penalties and a $10,000 fine to somebody making $7 million a year. That's like a quarter to us.
Right. Anybody want to add anything to this story? Because I'm ready to move on to the day games, the 1 o'clock games that we got on here for you. All right, Kurt, I think you want to ask Paul and I. We're going to start with the Giants-Bears. Little 1 o'clock game. Why don't you give us a question each? Kurt?
Yeah, here's my first question to you, Kenny. I'll just start. Is Saquon Barkley back to being a top 3 running back in the NFL?
100%. I'll do a rapid fire. Yes. I mean, I'm seeing him break tackles. I watched the game, and I saw him make a play that I don't know how many running backs in the NFL could do in the history of the NFL, not just this year. He was tackled for almost a 10-yard loss, and he turned it into a 20-yard gain. So, yes, I 100% think he's back, Kurt.
All right, Paul, my question for you, it's kind of like a past and a future question, but, you guys just faced Baker Mayfield, Cooper Rush, and I mean, I know you guys might argue on the panel, but I think one of the worst quarterbacks in football in Justin Fields. Now, Sunday morning is a different animal. You're facing Mr. Rogers. Even though he doesn't have Devontae, he's still Mr. Rogers. So, I guess my question is, the way the Giants have played, especially in the secondary, do you think, Paul, that play the past 3 games gets the win Sunday morning?
A guy like Rodgers, you have to put a rush on him. So the secondary play comes into effect if they can get a decent pass rush on him, which means Kayvon has to continue what he's been doing the last couple of games. I know Aziz may not play. There might be a reoccurrence of his calf injury, and obviously Leonard Williams may not play. But they had a great scheme against the Bears. They had 6 sacks. They had countless other pressures on Fields. As you said, he's not considered one of the best quarterbacks. But if they can continue to do that kind of defensive pressure on Rodgers, listen, it's possible. It's possible that they can give him a difficult time. Will they win the game? I don't know. It hasn't been pretty the first 4 games, but let's see.
Rapid fire from Keith. I'm going to start with Carson. Is Zeke Elliott a guaranteed starting running back in the NFL next year?
Yes, I think he is. I just don't see him working out long-term with the Cowboys, but I feel like a lot of other teams could use Zeke.
Ryan, what do you think?
On talent, I would say no. But I think that his price tag is going to influence that, whether it should or not.
Kenny?
The bias in me is going to say no, because I'm not a fan of his. But like Ryan said, somebody's going to give him a contract. A veteran team. I could see like the Rams, like just throwing a team out there, the Rams or the Buccaneers, a veteran team might take him on as opposed to having a rookie running back.
And Paul?
Yeah, there's a lot of thread on his tires, but I think he still has maybe a year or 2 where he can be viable and make plays. So I would say yes.
And Keith is just throwing us out there. Maybe the Broncos now, with the question with Javonte Williams being out for next year. Hey, I don't hate the idea. It's about the money with him, but
Latavius Murray isn't the answer.
We'll find out a little tomorrow night, I guess.
That's true.
Well, you know what, Kurt? Let me switch the order up. Do you have any more Giant questions for us, Kurt?
Again, the
or
only
anybody,
other,
you guys want to ask us a Giant
no, the only
question?
only other thing is, hey, week 4 now, Daniel Jones again. Rushing in, he's winning. Just real quick, impressed with Daniel Jones, Paul?
You have to be. Look at the receivers, or should I say the lack thereof of receivers on this team. I mean, it's been Jones and Barkley as a 2-man offense. The line, except for Andrew Thomas, is terrible. So give this guy credit. I mean, let me just say this. It's amazing to me, and I've had discussions with Kenny about this, the lack of respect that Giant fans show to this guy. And I know we aren't the biggest supporter of him. We're not the biggest fans, but you got to give him credit. I mean, they've won 3 games, I think, in large part, obviously because of Saquon, but also because of Daniel Jones.
Kenny, your thoughts?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Just like Paul said, same exact thing. Do I think Daniel Jones is going to be the quarterback next year? No. It's either going to be a veteran guy, maybe a Lamar Jackson, or a rookie, because this coaching staff, this general manager, didn't draft Daniel Jones. That being said, I'm ecstatic the way he's carried the team with Barkley because of the lack of receivers. He's running for, but now we got the Packers. It's a decent defense, and Daniel Jones has got a sprained ankle, so might not even see Daniel Jones on the field Sunday. So let's see, take it one game at a time. But right now, I'm liking what I see of Daniel Jones, but I still don't think he's going to be the quarterback of the Giants.
Can I
Ryan,
say something?
Ryan, I was going to ask you as an Eagle fan, looking at from the other side, are you impressed at all with Daniel Jones?
Absolutely. And I think that as an Eagles fan, I have very little positive to say about the Giants. I think I like Daniel Jones more than some Giants fans do. And I'm going to give you a prediction right now. If they let go of Daniel Jones after this season, he's going to be the next Ryan Tannehill and rebound with another team.
Here's my thing, though. This is where the question always asks. How much is too much for him? 35 million a year for him for 4 years?
That's what it would take.
I think that's going to – sorry.
No, just saying I can't go more than 30.
I think it's going to be – I mean, it's NFL is what have you done for me lately. I think it's going to be heavily based on what he does out the balance of this season. But in a league where Tyler Heineke was a starting quarterback, Gardner Minshew was a starting quarterback, there is a team that's going to give Daniel Jones a chance to start next year. And I think he'll probably end up being one of the 32 starting quarterbacks in the NFL next year.
Carson,
guys, I'll bring up one last thing.
Okay.
I'm sorry, look, Carson. One last thing I'll do real quick. What you have to worry about is the history of injuries. They're there. I mean, now he's got a sprained ankle. I mean, he's hats off to him. Him and Barkley, like Paul said, won that game for us last week. Wasn't the wide receivers. The defense played lights out, but on offense, it was Daniel Jones and Barkley. But he is hurt again. How many times can you go with somebody who gets hurt? So that's all I
have a question. If I can just interject the question to everyone. Do you franchise Daniel Jones
I
and
think
give him the franchise tag?
I think you might be better than doing that than saying here's 4 years, $120 million. I mean, if you want to see one more year, yeah. I mean, he's not going to be happy about that because nobody wants to be franchised. But yeah, I mean, you got to do what's best for you. You got to be realistic. Like, if you really say, if Dable says, I really want to see one more year before we make a decision, you do it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll just say it as a Giant fan. I don't think they're going to do that. That's me personally, unless Daniel Jones has an all-pro year. I think the Giants are moving on from him just because he's Gettleman. That was Gettleman's guy, and we all know what Gettleman did to the Giants. And like I said, we're 4 games in, we're 3-1, but we can easily be 0-4. So, we're not blowing the doors off of anybody. Let's be realistic.
Let's get. Oh, I'm sorry, Ryan. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say really quick. I think that the tag value next year for a quarterback is just going to be too high for what they'll be willing to pay Daniel Jones.
Let's just get Carson's thoughts on that again. Not a Giant fan, but what's your thoughts on it?
Yeah, let's get Carson's thoughts, and then we're going to move on to his Lions.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I agree with you guys. It's like Daniel Jones. He had question marks at the beginning of the year. Is he going to be your long-term guy, or what's the price tag for him? But you got to wait now and see what he does for the rest of the season. I'm impressed with what he's done, and I mean, your best receiver is who? Kadarius Toney. That's not saying much for the Giants. And Kenny Galladay is still Kenny Galladay. He hasn't caught a pass yet, so. I would definitely look at Daniel Jones on the positive side of things. If you start to get him weapons, it could be a promising future for
Carson,
him.
does that make you scratch your head, though, when it's like you just said Kenny Galladay? I mean, would you ever think seriously that what happened? Seriously?
Yeah, the 2 years with him that we had him with the Lions, I mean, people were calling him Babytron, comparing him to Calvin Johnson, Megatron. He was our second coming of Megatron to fill his shoes, and he had a great 2 seasons with us. And again, I think a big part of that was because he had Matthew Stafford. Now he went to a different team with Daniel Jones, so you see the difference. But I just don't think the scheme works. I don't know why. He's been saying he wants to get traded. He keeps having health issues and problems. And I have no idea what happened, to be honest. But his first 2 years with us was looking really promising.
Kenny, before you go to Carson with the Lions, and then Keith's got a couple quick hitters I want to get to. So
yeah, let's move on to the. I want to do this like each week. With our teams. Carson's a Lions fan. He's up there in Michigan, so that's why I brought this game up. Carson, Lions found another way to lose. This time it was in you want to call it a low-scoring basketball game, college basketball game, 48-45. To the Seattle Seahawks and Geno Smith. My question to you, and then the other guys want to ask a question as well. It's a simple one. Dan Campbell, are you still all in on him being your coach of the future, or are you starting to have doubts?
Yeah, I think there's still question marks with him. He still has not won a road game in his first year and a half that he's been with us. There's a major question mark on defense right now. The Seattle's punter might as well stayed back in Washington because he didn't step once on the football field. And I mean, people try to say it's the same old lines, and I'm getting away from it because the most lines thing in the world that you could have happen is you have the number one offense in the NFL right now, and you have the historically worst defense in NFL history right now. So you find ways to lose games, and that's just what the Lions done. I've seen it my whole life, and if we lose to Bailey Zappi or whoever the backup is for New England this weekend, I have major question marks on this defense. And I think Aaron Glenn, our defensive coordinator, is to blame because on paper, we're definitely better than we were last year. And you just haven't seen any improvement, and screaming at my TV just to get the punter on the field to make a stop. Cause it was a slugger fest back and forth, just exchanging touchdowns left and right. And we just could not get it done.
Kenny,
Guys,
you're going to like this comment.
I was going to say, go ahead. Read the comment. Then I was going to ask if I can ask Carson a follow-up question.
I just saw a comment from Keith. He said, and then it's a tweet I got to read. He's saying, did Antonio Brown bring about divorce lawyers for Brady and Giselle with the photo he put up on Instagram? And I just looked on Twitter, and it has the question. These are no joke Vegas odds. Who will be Giselle's next boyfriend? And Kenny, you're going to love number 5. Number 1, well, I don't know if it's number 1, but plus 800 is Bradley Cooper. Plus 1,000 is Pete Davidson. Plus 1,200 is Brad Pitt. Plus 1,600 is Leonardo DiCaprio. And Kenny, plus $100,000 is the Iron Sheik.
I thought you were going to say Donald Trump.
No, those are the five.
Save that for tomorrow. That's a good one for Joey Clams. That's a good one for Joey Clams. I like that. Quick follow-up question for Carson, then you guys more than welcome to ask him a question. And this has to do with Kurt because he said that this quarterback was trash. But so far, 4 games in, Jared Goff is looking okay. And he didn't have his top receiver, right, and his top running back in this game. And going forward, you're getting Jamison Williams back. So I think the offense is even going to get better. And I just want to know if you're – same question. Are you all in on Jared Goff?
I think what he's done this year, I mean, a lot of question marks were, is he really worth a $30 million contract? And, are we going to scrap him? Are we going to search for a quarterback in the draft? A lot of the Lions fans here were upset that we didn't take a quarterback in the draft this year. And Jared Goff has been nothing but awesome, especially given the fact, like you just said, Kenny, without Amon-Ra, without DJ Chark, without Swift. I mean, he made our mediocre receivers look pretty damn good at home. And, if I was Goff, I would be incredibly happy with the performance that he's had so far this year.
Guys, any quick questions for Carson? We'll move on to the Eagles. Eagles-Jaguars. The Eagles are the only undefeated team left in the NFC and left in the NFL, I should say. Unfortunately for us Giant fans, we don't like to hear that. But I'll ask Ryan a question on his Eagles. And Jalen Hurts proved me wrong so far 4 games in. He's stepped up, and he is arguably a top 10 quarterback in the league right now. Who, if anybody, have you seen not step up? Like, who do you want to see step up even more going forward, either on offense or defense? And what else? What are some players that are going to be key contributors going forward?
In terms of somebody who I'd like to see step up more, that's a tough question. I would probably have to say Quez Watkins, and the only reason I'm going with Quez Watkins, that he's actually not done too badly. I think part of that is just because the offense is so loaded now that there's only so many reps to go around. So that I don't think is entirely his fault. But I'd love to see him go out there and especially with the top two guys banged up right now. I'd love to see him go out there and have a big game and kind of solidify that three-headed monster in receivers that Philly's got. Can you please repeat the next part of the question?
Uh, was who has stepped up and who are going to be some key contributors going forward?
Key contributors, yes. So I think he's already been fantastic. I'm sorry that I'm gonna upset people by saying this, but he's already really stepped out for me. But I think James Bradbury is going to be huge for us, especially with Slay hurt now. He had a big interception this past weekend. He's been money for us so far. I think that, pardon me, some of the depth linemen that we have, Opeda, and a couple of others are going to be huge because we got Mailata went down, Somala went down. So I think that's going to, I think, really reflect, Howie Roseman has always been, for all the criticism he got from Eagles fans in 2020 and 2021, from myself included. The one thing he's always preached is you win in the trenches. You got to be solid in the trenches. And, now his decisions to go for depth and guys like Dickerson and whatnot, they're going to have the opportunity to prove themselves if these guys don't come back quickly.
Thanks, Ryan. Kurt, you want to ask Ryan?
Yeah, actually, I got
Ricky?
a question from Keith. Ryan, real quick. What game on the schedule do you fear most as an Eagle fan?
What game on the schedule do I fear most as an Eagle fan? So let me look right now, just because I don't want to get my information wrong. I would say there's a game coming up. It's not until the end of November, but we're playing at home against Green Bay. And if the receivers have started to develop, or if they go out and get an OBJ or somebody like that and bring him in, that could be a game. Aaron Rodgers is never a quarterback to be counted out, even when he doesn't particularly like his receivers, which I think is the case that we have right now. But that's a game where I think they're going to be tested. And Green Bay's got not a terrible defense either. But I mean, even this weekend, it's not a game that I'm concerned about per se, but Arizona has one of the best rushing defenses in the NFL and one of the worst passing defenses. So can Jalen Hurts continue to be the Jalen Hurts of the last few weeks if he's forced into a heavier passing attack and it doesn't have the ability to just, take it 100 yards on the ground this week?
Thanks, Ryan. Why don't we try and move on to a couple more games quickly, and then we'll get into some baseball because we got the Major League Baseball playoffs coming up, fellas. Paul, you got a quick hitter question for me with the Bills Ravens?
Yeah,
I can answer real quick.
It's not so much it could be a quick hitter.
I'll do it in like not a quick hitter. I'll do it in a quick answer response.
Okay,
a minute, so we can move on to baseball. Like I said,
obviously the Ravens have had historically great defenses. Do you think they're having buyer's remorse after letting Wink Martindale go now and bringing in the Michigan defensive coordinator, because the Ravens defense has not been anywhere near it has been in the past?
That's a good question, Paul. And I think I had this conversation with Sis. Wink Martindale has made our defense look much better in 4 games. Now, you live or die by aggressiveness, but the Ravens defense, all them years that he was there, very aggressive. And, he wasn't there when Ray Lewis was there, but they never had the quote unquote star players on defense where besides Terrell Suggs, like you look at their defense now and it's a totally different style defense that they're playing, and they're giving up 30 points a game, if not more. They lose to the Dolphins. And to segue into, that John Harbaugh has no confidence in this defense. 2-yard line. If you guys saw the game, fourth quarter, pouring rain out here in Maryland, Baltimore, and 2-yard line, 4 minutes to go, tie game. He elects to go for it. Buffalo comes down with the stop. They come down. They get the game-winning field goal. No confidence in his defense. So yes, I think Wink Martindale. I think there is remorse because that style of defense works. It's not going to work every week, but it's working not only with the Giants, but it worked with the Ravens for a lot of years. Thanks, Paul. Anybody want to add to what I said, or?
Yeah, just really quickly, Kenny, you guys took Kyle Hamilton in the first round of the draft this year. Have you seen anything that stood out to you or impressed you at all, or what do you think of Kyle Hamilton so far?
On the Ravens?
Yeah.
To be honest with you, I can't answer that honestly because I do live here in Baltimore, in the Baltimore area, but we get the Commander games down here mostly. So I only watched one game that the Ravens played against the Bills, and I didn't see him too much, so I can't really give that in an honest answer. If there's anybody out there that can, please take it.
Gotcha.
I don't know, Paul, if you've been following your boy over in Notre Dame, but I honestly can't answer that one.
No, I haven't particularly.
I will keep an eye out though this week now because I will be up in Baltimore, so I will keep an eye out Sunday night, watch that, and see if Hamilton.
Cool.
And I'll take a rain check on that answer. I'll give you an answer next week.
Sounds good.
Kurt, I got the Broncos Raiders for you. I got a question I'm going to give you. Tough loss, Raiders on the road, division game, but a bigger loss was the loss of your star, top 5, in my opinion, running back, Javonte Williams. And my question to you is going to be, with the loss of Javonte Williams, 2-part question. A, do you have confidence in Melvin Gordon? And I'd like your thoughts on Melvin Gordon 4 games in. And 2, what does this mean? Like, and part 2 is, in my opinion, your offense is underachieving right now. What needs to change, if anything?
Listen, it's a shame, man, because Keith just said Javonte. No, I mean, this kid's a special back, and I don't disagree with you when you say top 5 back. I mean, there's not a lot of backs that could do what this kid could do with the power he runs, breaking tackles, and it was unfortunate. I mean, and it's gonna hurt. I mean, just hopefully, I'll be honest, it was the ACL, the PCL, like it's a bad injury, and they're saying, they don't know when next year he's gonna come back. So hopefully it's before this, regular for the regular season, but just hopefully he's back to the player he is, because like I said, he's potentially one of the best backs in the league, and it's going to hurt. Now, getting back to Melvin Gordon, listen, for tomorrow, he's got to be the man, because, listen, you can't ask Latavius Murray to come in or Mike Boone, and you know what? Like, I'm willing to give this guy a 1-game audition. What he says is, I've always been a starter. I'm not used to being on the bench and sharing carries and getting a couple. Well, you know what? Tomorrow you're going to be the man, and we're going to see. The fumbles, there's no excuse for that. I mean, you can't play a guy if he keeps fumbling the ball. That was, instead of going up by 7 points, you fumbled. That changes the whole game. Denver even puts up 3 there. They get the ball second half. You score. Now you're up 10. It's that hurt that and the defense, but that hurt the game. But I have confidence in Melvin Gordon. I like the Murray signing. I mean, Murray runs a little like Javonte Williams, right? But to change the offense, listen, Russ might, you might have to let Russ be Russ, and I mean Seattle Russ a little bit. You saw that last week. Oh, run in a little more scrambling. Maybe you got to go to to that and play with Judy, play with Hamler, and play with Sutton. So. That's my thoughts on that. Keith's saying 30% of all people come back to 100% from the injury Javonte has. It's a long road.
Well, Paul's going to agree with me on this, and then I'm just going to ask one more follow-up quick question for Kurt, and then if you guys want to ask him something. Saquon Barkley, Kurt, he's finally back after 2 years of that horrific injury that he had. So for you Bronco fans, I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer, but it might take him 2 years to get fully back to where he was after this injury. Quick follow-up.
But I will say this,
Kurt.
Keith, real quick. I will say this, Kenny, and I read this today, and I was telling Jenny Hoops on the phone. And again, not saying it's going to happen, but is this something they would do? It said the Carolina Panthers are struggling. Carolina Panthers need to make a move. they named 3 teams that could potentially look into Christian McCaffrey. I forgot who the other 2 were. Number 3 was the Denver Broncos. Is that something you would do, Mr. Kirkpatrick, if
No.
available?
No, because Christian McCaffrey's always hurt. No.
Carson,
That's a
would you
big-
do that if you were the
big no.
Broncos?
In a heartbeat. Christian McCaffrey's one of the best running backs in football. I know he can be injury prone, but you get an offer for C-Mac, you take it.
Ryan, what do you think? Denver, if it's possible, would you bring McCaffrey home?
You guys are either top 3 in drops or drop rate. It's the problem is just your receivers not catching the ball. I don't think a running back's going to help with that.
Paul.
I slightly disagree with Ryan. I think he would help because he's such a great receiver coming out of the backfield. So that would make up for perhaps some of the drops that they have
Fair enough.
coming out of their wide receiver core.
My quick follow-up question, Kurt, was your offense underachieving. I read Russell Wilson's got a little shoulder injury. Don't know how serious it is, but what I've seen, because I've been watching Bronco games on my phone, what I've been seeing, Kurt, and I've seen some good throws. I've seen some good throws from Russell Wilson, but I'm seeing more bad throws and low throws against the Raiders. Is that because of, shoulder injury? Is that because, what are your thoughts on Russell Wilson? Like, is this shoulder injury concern you? Are you worried?
I mean,
4 games in now, I still haven't seen the old Russell Wilson to.
Well, I think when you talk about the old Russell Wilson it's the system, and I bring this back and I'll say it again. You didn't see Aaron Rodgers in the first year of Matt LaFleur's offense. You didn't see the quote unquote old Aaron Rodgers. He struggled, right, to learn the offense. And you see that. The difference, though, is like what Russ did last game was, especially, the last 2-3 drives was, all right, I'm going to run the zone read. I'm going to keep it. I'm going to scramble a little bit. I'm going to hit the deep play. So it's, again, I really think it's kind of like Hackett's offense, what Wilson likes, that combination. But I'm not at all concerned about an injury. I mean, you got to be concerned if it's a throwing shoulder, but he'll play tomorrow. I think he'll be fine.
Again, I'm seeing a lot of low throws, so maybe there's more to this shoulder injury than said. I'm just trying to look at the other side here as a football
fan. The one
not a
thing I
Bronco
do
fan.
like, and Keith made a great point, I'll go rapid fire. I'll start with Paul, because my answer is yes. You guys watched the 49ers last night just manhandle the Rams. Does that 11-10 victory look a little better? That the 49ers are a pretty damn good team. Paul, what do you think?
Yeah, it certainly makes that game look a lot better for Denver. I know you're going to go around. I just have a quick question to follow up with you on that.
Sure.
Oh, who's asking the question? Paul, you got a question?
Yeah. At what point, Kurt, do you start getting concerned if their offense isn't clicking on all cylinders? Where in the season do you say to yourself, hey, we've got to really look at this?
I would say right before that bye, right? I think they got the Colts, then they go Monday night to the Chargers, the Jets, and then the Jags, and then they're off. By that time, if it's not clicking, then it's definitely a concern. But I will say this is, and again, I'll get back to Ryan and Carson, but I heard this today where, everybody keeps saying Russell Wilson, and this is from Russell Wilson, he wants to have an end of his career, like the next 6-7 years, like Drew Brees did. So everybody on the radio was saying, listen, there is no guarantee Nathaniel Hackett, he could be one and done. And if he really wants to be Drew Brees, the guy out there is Sean Payton. Is that something? Because, I mean, you got to match Russell Wilson with Sean Payton? Because they said this new ownership group, they have no connection with George Payton, and they definitely don't have a connection with Nathaniel Hackett. What this ownership does have is the ownership came in, and that ownership made a commitment to Russell Wilson. So their commitment is we got to pair get the best out of Russell Wilson. So I'll ask you, Ryan, if there is no playoffs this year, if the offense doesn't click, Sean Payton to the Broncos to work with Russell Wilson, yes or no, Ryan?
I think it'd be malpractice not to explore it. Now, keep in mind, Breeze did not exactly run the same type of offense as Russell Wilson did. That being said, he seems like he would be able to, kind of play to whatever Russell's strengths are. He seems like that, kind of that type of offensive thinker. So it's something they should explore.
But they're saying Russ is really the one that kind of wants to run the Drew Brees offense. Like Russ, they're saying Russ is the one that doesn't want to be scrambling and running. He wants to be more of a pocket. He wants to be like what those Saints did. So how much better is if you just get that Saint guy? Carson, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's definitely worth exploring and optioning. If it's not working out with the coaching staff and the quarterback, I think you got to take a chance and throw your shot in the water, and you don't know if you don't try. So that's definitely an option if they want to go that route.
Kenny, real quick.
No, I agree with Carson said. Echo his words that if they want to go that route, go that route. I think Sean Payton would be a big, he'd be a big upgrade to almost any coach in the NFL. Your guy over there. That's like, I don't know how to compare it. Let's, like an F to an A plus. Like it's a no brainer.
Keith is saying Jerry Jones will pay Sean Payton too much to compete. And Paul, real quick, you like that idea, matching Payton with Russ?
Oh, I love Sean Payton. I think he's one of the best 3-4 coaches in the NFL when he's still a coach. So yeah, it would be fabulous for you.
All right, boys. Let's do this. So I'm gonna unfortunately have to leave soon. Chiefs Bucks. I want to ask you a quick hitter question. It's going to be 2 quick hitters. I'll go Kurt, Ryan, Carson, Paul. Kurt, after the Chiefs beat the Buccaneers 41-31 on Sunday night, are the Chiefs now the front runners in the AFC?
You know what? All season I said no, but after that performance and Mahomes, man, he's that damn good. I still don't trust their defense in a big spot, but yeah, because
okay, and then
yes,
yep, okay, and then are the Bucks in trouble in the NFC?
No, not in trouble at all. Again, turnovers in that game. That Brady's going to score. You saw what he did with these receivers back. Not at all. I think again, no.
Okay, Ryan, are the Chiefs the front runners in the AFC?
I'd have to say yes right now. I thought it would be Buffalo, but I'm a little concerned about a couple of things I see, especially on their offensive side. And some of the teams that I thought would pop, I've just not done so far.
Carson. Oh, I'm sorry. Bucks in trouble?
Are you talking to me?
I'll go to Ryan with the Bucks, and then
okay.
we'll go to you, Carson.
You said the Bucks in trouble? I mean,
are the Bucks in trouble? 2-2. Giving them 41 points at home, losing 2 in a row to 2 top teams.
I think that they're. I wouldn't say red light yet, but I definitely would say yellow light, especially with the injuries that they sustained to Brady's. A lot of Brady's weapons arsenal.
Kenny, Eddie Murphy saying, hello, gentlemen. Broncos should have traded for Geno. Eddie. He's out playing Russ, LOL.
Haven't seen Eddie in a while. Good to hear from you, buddy. Carson, how about you? Your thoughts? Are the Chiefs the front runners?
I still think it's the Bills. You can't really judge based off one game from the Bills yet. I still think the best overall team in football, and Kurt just kind of nailed it. I still have questions with the Chiefs. They give up a ton of points to the Bucks, but the Chiefs did pretty well against the Bucks defense, and they're one of the best in football. So I would go with the Bills, but the Chiefs are like right neck and neck with them.
And Bucks, are they in trouble?
I think they are, and it's going to be really interesting to see what happens with this whole off-field situation with Brady. Brady is Brady, but Brady is a human as well, and he's been getting crucified a lot, putting his family and marriage in jeopardy, and that might play with his mental game. And I don't know if he can't get over that quickly. That's not an easy thing to do when you're going through a divorce and trying to play football at the same time. So we'll see what happens. I don't think they are. They should be fine, but we'll see.
Kenny, real quick, Eddie's saying he deactivated Facebook, so he don't get notifications anymore. So he's joining us via YouTube.
All right, we'll get it to him on YouTube. Yeah, we're on YouTube and we're on Twitter too, Eddie. So listen to us anytime on there. Good to hear from you. I'm going to go next, Paul, because I'm going to agree 100% with Carson said. I do think the Bills are still the top team in the AFC. I watched the Bills against the Ravens. They came back in the second half. They could have you know, monsoon down here. They could have just said, "Hey, you know what? Let's just get out of here healthy. We'll go back home 2-2, and we'll go on a 6-game win streak." But they came back and beat the Ravens. They showed me something. As for the Bucks, I do think they're in trouble. They lost to the Packers at home and to the Chiefs at home, two top 5, top 10 teams anybody in the league would say, and they lost both of them in 2 different styles. And I watched the Buccaneers run the ball only 6 times. So it starts with the coaching. And the Bucks coaching needs to balance that offense a little bit because you got a 45-year-old man in Tom Brady that has to play 17 games this year, and throwing the ball 50 times a game ain't going to work. They are in trouble. Paul.
I'm going to agree with you and Carson. I think Buffalo is still the team to beat. They had a big target on their back, and they have a very difficult schedule. But like you just said, they came back against a relatively decent Baltimore team on the road and wound up winning that game. As far as the Bucks, they were my preseason favorites to go to the Super Bowl and win it. But there's some water taking the ship onto that pirate ship, no pun intended. And let's face it, Brady isn't getting any younger. The outside issues, very hard to deal with them 6 days a week and then put them on the doorstep, as they say, and go in and play. He's that kind of athlete. He's that kind of a person that possibly can do it. They're going to win their division. There's no question about it. Okay. So they're going to be in the playoffs. Then once they get in there, then it's a question of how they're going to succeed, if they're going to succeed, especially against some of the better teams, as you just said, Kenny.
Thanks, Paul. Kurt, why don't we do this? I spoke to my friend. I got about 15 minutes before I got to go. I got 5 quick hitter questions for you guys, college football, and then that could segue right into baseball for the rest of the show. Want to do that?
Yeah, it's fine.
Do my 5 quick hitter questions for you guys.
Like
rapid fire quick hitter questions. I think they're pretty good questions. I'll do it in the order that I see it on my screen to make it easier and faster. Kurt, rapid fire answer. Biggest upset in college football this year. I got some written down. Marshall over Notre Dame, Appalachian State over Texas A&M, Middle Tennessee State over Miami, or etc.
I'm going to say, by the way, I will say Pitt over last week. Well, who beat Pitt cost me money. So who was that? Pitt? Oh, Georgia Tech, but whatever. I'm going to say, though, Kenny, A&M. You know, they were national contenders, and they lost at home to App State.
Ryan, biggest upset so far?
Like I said, when it happened, I didn't know Middle Tennessee existed. I was shocked by that. I think that's got to be my biggest upset so far.
Keith agrees with you, Ryan, on that.
Carson.
Yeah, I think the Marshall one really stuck out to me. I mean, I was flipping through the channels and I turned the TV and I'm like, wow, Marshall's beating Notre Dame at home and they steamrolled them. It wasn't even close. Yeah, I would say Marshall, most impressive.
Paul.
Middle Tennessee State and Carson. The only reason I disagree with you is Notre Dame does not have a great team this year. So even though they were playing at home, Marshall brought in some really, really good transfers. So they have a good team.
As much as I want to take this team right here, because that was disgraceful. For those who don't know, I am a Miami Hurricane fan. I'm going to go with Kurt, and I'm going to agree with Kurt, believe it or not. A&M, SEC, you can't lose to Appalachian State. You're in the
national title talk.
You're in the national title talk, and you're in the biggest conference in football, the best conference in football, and you lose at home to Appalachian State. That's my most disappointing. Number 2, Kurt, most disappointing team so far this year.
Oh, Oklahoma.
Nebraska. Well, I'll give you some multiple choice, but they're on here. You might want to change your mind. Nebraska, Notre Dame, Miami, Oklahoma, Texas A&M, or Wisconsin.
Oklahoma, because, and I'll tell you why, I'm a big Venables fan, and they said, don't worry, he's going to fix that defense there. That defense is atrocious. They gave up, 55 to TCU? 2 weeks, but they give up like 100 points? Oklahoma, hands down.
or an etc. Ryan, who's your most disappointing team?
Can you give me that list again?
I got Nebraska, Notre Dame, Miami, Oklahoma, A&M, Wisconsin.
Oh yeah.
All of them.
Or etc.
I'll go with Nebraska. I felt like they were coming in expected to be better than 2-3 to this point, and they're not. I mean, they're like around the level of like UAB and ECU. Like that's not where they were expected to be at all.
Paul's Kenny Keith is saying you can't lose to Middle Tennessee. Come on, Kenny, Middle Tennessee.
You can't lose to Appalachian State neither when you're in the SEC. So Miami's there. I'm going to give you, you know what? Because he said Miami's my most disappointing team. Because yes, you can't lose to Middle Tennessee State, but you got this new coach, Cristobal, coming over from Oregon. Great recruiter, great coach. Joey Clams praises this guy. I haven't seen it. He hasn't gotten this team up, gave up in the, 45, 50 points to Middle Tennessee State. So that's my most disappointing team this year over A&M. I'll take Miami Hurricanes. Carson.
Yeah, no, you're not alone, Kenny. I get the heebie-jeebies when I hear the words Middle Tennessee State because my Spartans had a pretty big loss to them in the NCAA tournament a few years ago. So I'm definitely with you. But yeah, I would say my Spartans. They were in the top 15, top 20, I think, to start the year in the AP poll, and you hear all this talk about Mel Tucker. He's arrived, and what are they going to do without Kenneth Walker? They are screwed without Kenneth Walker. Big disappointment for my Spartans this year.
Yeah, I agree, Carson. I forgot to put them on the list, but that's a good one. Paul.
I'm going to say Wisconsin. Wisconsin is considered top 15 also. They fired their coach already. And, I mean, consistently always top 10, top 15. And for them to be as bad as they are this year, that's a shock. And to get rid of their coach already is also something that's been a very big disappointment so far, in my opinion.
Good ones, guys. Good ones. Couple more, Kurt. Number 3, which Power 5 school that has had past success, meaning been to major bowl games, has the best chance of turning their program around? I'll give you a couple, and if you want to change it, you can change it. Tennessee, like turning their program around, not being a one-year wonder. Tennessee,
Okay.
Florida State, Kansas State with the Bill Snyder years, a few years back, Kansas State had great teams. The Washington Huskies, Penn State, or an etc. team. Not just this year, but building that program back to its past success.
That's tough. It's tough. I mean, I can go Penn State. I can go. I'm gonna go Tennessee. I think because it's a tradition-rich feel. And I think again, those recruits are gonna flock to that SEC. They're not in the West, so they don't have to worry about the tougher teams. So I'm going to take Tennessee.
Ryan.
I'm sorry to do this, but can you please repeat the list?
The list is going to be this not 1 year wonder. This is
Right.
rebuilding their program. Tennessee, Florida State, Kansas State, Washington, Penn State.
Okay. I'm going to go Tennessee. They've had a couple of nice recent with recruiting, in my opinion. And they've started out obviously pretty well this year. So I think that if they can double down and they can have another good recruiting year over the next, another good recruiting stash over the next year or two, I think they can put themselves in a good position going forward.
Keith is saying Florida State, they'll get primetime Sanders as head coach.
That's a good point. I think I agree with Keith. I'm with Florida State because the ACC is not that strong, and Florida State, Miami are going to be fighting for those Florida recruits, and I want to see Cristobal work his magic. But it would not surprise me, Florida State. I didn't put Miami on the list because they're not having success this year after Middle Tennessee State, but we'll see in a few weeks if that changes. Carson.
Yeah, I'm with Ryan and Kurt. I would say Tennessee. I think Josh Heupel has done a great job with his coaching staff. Kind of an SEC team that was kind of forgotten and lost about a few years ago, and then all of a sudden is on the rise. They're in the top 10. Great defense and offense that they got going on. Recruiting's been great for them. I think Tennessee's made the biggest turnaround recently.
I just spoke to my friend Kurt. I got to 8:45. So we'll do these. I'll get to Paul. We'll do these next two questions I got quick, and then I want you to ask your baseball question, and then
Kenny,
we'll
real quick, Joey Clams is chiming in. He's saying, "Hey boys, what's up?" And then he's saying, "Kansas, very good head coach."
What's up, Joey?
Hey,
That's a good one, Joe. As opposed though, they haven't had past success, so that these are teams that have won national championships. These are teams that have won their conferences in the past. That's why the list. But Kansas is having one heck of a year. Can't deny that. Paul, I didn't get yours on this question with the
short and
Tennessee,
sweet. Florida State.
Florida State. Yeah, we're
Yes, sir.
kind of right down the middle there with Florida State, Tennessee. That was good. This one's quick, Kurt. Which SEC school or schools has the best chance to knock off either Georgia or Alabama?
I'm gonna go Tennessee again. I mean, they got Bama home. I believe. What is it next week?
And I won't ask you who they're going to knock off. It could be either or, but just a school that you think can knock one of those two schools off.
I'll go Tennessee.
Okay. Ryan.
Yeah. Until further notice, I got to go with Tennessee also.
If you want to say who they're going to beat, that's fine. But you don't have to.
It sure ain't going to be Auburn.
Obviously, I'm hoping it's Georgia, but
Georgia, yeah, absolutely. Carson.
I'm going to give you a sneaky one, and they've made some noise in the past. Ole Miss. Watch out for the Rebels. I feel like they could upset either Alabama or Georgia on their schedule. They're a damn good football team this year.
Absolutely. Paul.
This may not answer the question, but I don't think anybody's going to beat either Georgia or Alabama.
Fair enough. I'm going to agree with Carson with Ole Miss, but I'm going to even throw a second one out there. Kentucky is going to beat Georgia. That game, Kentucky could have very easily won that game. And Kentucky's going to get Georgia at home. And Georgia hasn't been, I talk to Sis all the time about SEC, and he tells me, how, when I was working, Georgia didn't look good. They almost lost to Missouri. Georgia has been not on its A game these last couple of weeks. You get a hungry team like Kentucky. I think that's going to be your team that knocks off Georgia.
Clams, Kenny Clams is throwing out Mr. Coach Leach and the Mississippi
State Bulldogs.
Yeah,
Mike Leach. State. Joey Clams in the house. Joey Clams. We'll see you tomorrow, Joe. Wits and Wagers. Looking forward to it as always. My last question, then we'll get to baseball, fellas. Sleeper team to make the college football playoff, Kurt.
Sleeper team. I'm going to throw you a Kentucky.
Anybody
Kentucky.
but
Kentucky.
Okay, I was going to say, anybody but the top six.
Kentucky, because you know what? If they do win the East, which they can, I'm going to go Kentucky.
Ryan, who's your sleeper team to make the college football playoff?
So you said anyone but the top six?
Yeah, so no Michigan, no Clemson, no USC.
Yeah. All right, give me the Longhorns.
Sneaky. I like it. Carson.
Man, I want to say Kansas. I just don't think it's realistic. I like what they're doing, but playoffs is kind of a little bit too much of a stretch for them. I think a team, though, that could legitimately make a run, though, is Oregon. They had their pretty much a blowout loss to Georgia, but if they go undefeated the rest of the year, that's a legit. If you lose to Georgia, that's a loss that looks good on your record. If you go undefeated the rest of the way.
Mr. Rosen, you're allowed to say Notre Dame, but
No.
I don't know. I might have to mute you after that comment. But
I guarantee you I'm not. Oklahoma State.
Oklahoma State.
Good
I'm
one.
gonna, Kurt, I agree with you with Kentucky, but I'm going to throw this team out there who was in the mix at the beginning of the year. Very sneaky, climbing up the ranks, and they're going to get their shot to beat a couple teams. Utah.
I almost said that Kenny.
Clams agreed and went Oklahoma State.
All right, Kurt. Let's. So I got a few minutes left. Why don't we move into the Major League Baseball playoffs are here now, fellas. I think it's time to talk some baseball. Do a little preview of the wild card games. Some Met Yankee talk. But Kurt, I know you got something you wanted to talk about right before that.
I'm going to do it real quick. And again, hats off to Aaron Judge. Unbelievable season, 62. But the only thing I'm going to say, and again, is like I hear some people, on the K show and like it's not the record, like, and I'll just go over like Barry Bonds is the record holder. I know there's people that don't like it, but it's Aaron Judge did not break the MLB home run record. Now people are like, well, it's clean. He's clean and the other people aren't clean. If we're gonna get into that. Do we take the Yankees World Series in 2009 away because of Alex Rodriguez? We know he was juicing. I mean, he was unbelievable in there. Do we take the championships away from Andy Pettitte from the Yankees because Andy Pettitte was doing all the HGH? Clemens won a World Series. I mean, we got to watch like what we're saying with that. And, he broke the American League record, right? I mean, if Aaron Rodgers this year throws 52 touchdowns, he's not the most touchdowns. That's Peyton Manning for 55. So, hey, tip of the hat, great run, but enough of this. He's the real home run champ. He's not. The home run champ is Barry Bonds with 73. Because if we're going to do that, we're taking away a lot of that Yankee dynasty because of Pettitte, because of A-Rod, because of those guys. Same thing with Boston, with Poppy. I mean, we could take, Brady, they cheated, take all those titles away then if we're really going to get into it. That's my thought. What's everybody's thoughts on that?
Ryan.
Yeah, I'll jump in. So first, let me start off by saying I agree with you, Kurt, on the Barry Bonds thing. Now, beyond that, I think that, and this is the context that I think gets missed a little bit, when we're talking baseball and we're talking like the Hall of Fame argument, for example, we're talking A-Rod, we're talking Manny Ramirez, we're talking Bonds, Clemens, et cetera, et cetera. These situations are not all the same. Bonds and Clemens, particularly Bonds, he was quote unquote juicing, or at least allegedly juicing, pretty much almost confirmed. But when baseball was thriving off of it, MLB was turning a blind eye to a lot of this stuff from all accounts and benefiting off of it in a lot of ways from the late 90s to the early 2000s. I don't believe they started testing until 06, or at least not penalizing. I don't believe until 06. So if you're coming down on a player who's doing it while it's known that it's forbidden and while it's being tested for, like a Manny Ramirez, that's, in my opinion, that's one thing. But if you're coming down on somebody from in the late 90s who, when this was not being tested for, in a lot of ways the game benefited in a lot of ways from the players who were doing this, that I think there's got to be some nuance there. I don't think it's a situation where all PED associated guys are created equal, because it's the culture around it, I guess, I would say, is a lot different in the late 90s when baseball was coming off of that 94-95 strike to the late 2000s.
Kenny, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, like Ryan nailed it with a lot of it. But Kurt, you and I grew up, and Paul, you grew up during that era with with the HGH Bonds, the Palmeiro. A lot of guys got caught. A lot of guys got away with it. But you know what? Baseball allowed it at the time. So to me personally, and I know a lot of people are going to disagree, the record is Barry Bonds. And okay, you can say cheated, but it should be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Pete Rose should be in the Hall of Fame. His performance on the field has nothing to do with off the field what he did. Still, his numbers, he gambled. Okay. There's worse things you could do in the world. He gambled. Okay. Bonds did it to his body. He hit 73 home runs. The home run has an asterisk next to it, but it's got it's still his record with an asterisk. So you know what? He should go into the Hall of Fame with an asterisk. So I don't know. Like, that's how I look at it.
Here's Joey Clams, Kenny, saying Judge has the AL record. Bonds is the home run champ. Bonds was never guilty. Bud Selig was a snake. So that's how Joey Clams is going to say it.
Kurt,
Oh, boy.
before you go to the other guys, can I give you my picks because I do have to get going.
Oh, sure, yeah, your baseball picks.
We're gonna do wild card, right? You want my wild card?
Yeah,
picks?
wild card, and then give me your American League.
All right, give me the matchup you want to go
All right,
first.
Cleveland, Tampa Bay.
I'm going to take Cleveland, and I sure hope I'm right because Tampa Bay is going to give us fits. So that's more of a rooting for Cleveland over Tampa Bay pick, but that's kind of like going to be the toughest one for me, 50-50 there.
All right, so then you go
let's
Toronto.
go Cleveland. Let's go Cleveland because we got a good chance of beating Cleveland.
All right, then you got Seattle, Toronto.
I'm taking Toronto. I think their offense will come through. Besides Castillo, I think Toronto will get the next two games.
All right, so then you got Tampa Bay, New York.
Tampa Bay, New York. I got Cleveland, New York.
I'm sorry, Cleveland, New York. Sorry, my bad.
I'm going to take New York over Cleveland.
Okay, then you go Toronto, Houston.
Toronto, Houston. I'm going to take Toronto. You're going to laugh at me.
Okay, Yankees, Toronto.
And this is me wanting to be wrong because every time I pick them for the past 10 years, they haven't made it. So I'm going to take Toronto over the Yankees.
Okay, National League, you got the Mets and the Padres.
The Grom scares me. He's not playing very well. It's a short series. Paul, I'm sorry. I'm going Padres.
Okay.
Momentum.
Then you got, Philly and St. Louis.
I'm going to take St. Louis there. I think their Pujols gets one last run.
Okay, Dodgers, Padres.
Dodgers. Dodgers is gonna be too
Atlanta.
tough. Give them rest.
Atlanta, Cardinals.
Cardinals play tough, but I think Pujols, this will be his last hurrah. I think the Braves take him.
Okay, Dodgers, Braves.
Repeat, Mr. Beelan will be happy. The Braves beat the Dodgers.
And then Toronto, Atlanta.
Toronto, Atlanta. Rematch of Joe Carter and Maddox and Smoltz. I'm going to take a long shot, the Toronto Blue Jays.
Okay. Kenny Longshot. There you go.
That's it. Boys, I hope you have a great show. I got to run. Carson and Paul and Ryan, have a good night, good week.
You
I'll
too.
be in touch with you
too,
guys.
Kenny.
Carson, I'll
too.
see you tomorrow for Wits and Wagers.
Yeah, sounds
Safe
good,
travels,
Take
Kenny.
care.
Thanks,
Kenny.
guys.
See you, Kenny.
Be safe.
I hope
See you
Kenny
guys.
Kenny make me the host so you don't show
Yep.
show. Carson, what's your thoughts on what I said about Judge?
Yeah, no, I completely agree with what you said, Kurt. I'm not taking anything away from what Aaron Judge did. He's unbelievable, and it's great that we have a historic record from a guy who did it the right way. I will admit that because there's the right way to do things and the wrong way to do things, and you can't ignore that. But like you said, Kurt, record is a record, and Barry Bonds will forever be the record, at least for the time being, unless somebody else comes along the way. But like you said, if you want to bring up the cheating argument, you take away so many other things in the past. Just recently with the Houston Astros, you're going to take away their World Series because they were banging on trash cans. It's same thing with what Ryan was saying with people, whether or not they should belong in the Hall of Fame. You put a little asterisk next to their name.
There it is. There's the share.
People have their arguments and their reasons why, but I still think the real record is Barry Bonds, but Aaron Judge, unbelievable as well.
Yep. And Paul.
Yeah, call me an old fogey or an old timer. I like that Ryan smile. Listen, I jumped into the whole McGuire Sosa era as much as anybody, and the Bonds, once he started, it was exciting. It was thrilling. You never expected anybody to hit as many home runs as any of those guys. That all being said, the idea that there was illegal substances helping them is such a demoralizing situation as far as I'm concerned. I love that Judge did it the quote unquote right way. That being said, I find it difficult to think of those guys in the Hall of Fame. Obviously, someone like Rose, who bet on baseball, which is probably the biggest violation that anyone can do. And he was betting as a manager of the Reds, by the way. All right. So it's difficult for me to be somewhat objective. I'm glad Judge did it. Obviously, not a Yankee fan, but from a baseball standpoint, for him to do what he did this year has been a phenomenal season for him.
And I just want to do one rapid fire, and I know it. I think I've asked this like maybe a year ago on the show, and maybe even longer. But when this whole thing comes up about the cheaters and stuff like that, I'm just gonna throw three people on it. I hope Rich Katwinka's not listening because he's a big time Patriot fan. But I mean, let's be realistic. The Patriots were proven guilty, right? So Robert Kraft had to pay, what was it, loss of draft picks, and they lost a first-round pick, right? Mm-hmm. Bill Belichick was the head coach of them at that time, and Tom Brady did sit out 4 games for cheating with the footballs. So all three of those guys are cheaters, right? They cheated, won Super Bowls. So let me ask you something, Ryan. Kraft, Belichick, Brady. They're all cheaters. Are they all 3 Hall of Famers? I mean, they were proven that they cheated and they took punishments, all 3 of them.
Yeah, no, I know that. Yeah, see, the difficulty that I have in the NFL is like I'll admit I'm not as like clear cut as to like how the rules progression was and like what like all of that. Like the point that I made in MLB was like I could tell you specifically that the rules were different in one year versus another one. So I don't have a ton of understanding of that. So I'm reluctant to come down with a hard stance. I think that, it would be hard, I think, to justify not having them be Hall of Famers. But like you said, I mean, I think it's a hard way to, like I don't remember who said it before, but I think putting them with an asterisk, I think it was Kenny who said that, that might be, the best approach because again, I don't have the foundation on those other matters
right. That's a good point, Ryan. And I'll ask Carson. I guess maybe the way I said it was wrong. If you're dead set against, and I know Keith's not, but if you're dead set against and saying, no way Pete Rose, no way McGuire, no way Sosa, no way Bonds in the Hall of Fame, can you go and say, but those 3 guys are going to go? Belichick, Brady, and Kraft, Carson?
Yeah, and again, it's such a tough gray area because it all depends on what you believe and what you don't believe. And again, people are going to believe that certain guys should be there and some guys saying, oh, you did way more than you should have. You shouldn't be there at the end of the day. But like you just said, I think Brady is the one that people get at because there's a lot of Tom Brady haters out there. And again, he's the greatest quarterback of all time. But like you just said, they used information that used to their benefit that resulted in winning them a Super Bowl. So again, if you're going to cheat, people are going to cheat. And if you make it established that you give them the trophy, it's a lot easier to let it go by than take the trophy back from them. And I think that's the way it's going to go for the time being, unfortunately.
Keith has a good point. He's saying no on Kraft for me because of his massage parlor incident in Florida that was swept quickly under the rug. Paul, real quick, what's your thoughts on that? Brady, Belichick, and Kraft.
Yeah. The writers in football are going to look at them and say, listen, these guys were arguably the best quarterback of all time and the best coach of all time. They will get voted in. The upset would be if they wouldn't get voted in on the first time as a unanimous player and coach. That would be an upset. I think Kraft is in another sphere where he may not get voted in. Maybe it's some veterans committee or something that would eventually put him in. But you make a very valid point, Kurt. To compare these guys who were obviously they were caught, they served their penance, so to speak, and now they're still considered arguably the best at their position and coach. So I think eventually they will get in.
I mean, if you really think about it, like we still say Bonds. I mean, I could be wrong, Ryan. If I'm wrong, correct me. But like Bonds, I don't know, maybe McGuire, but Bonds basically never came out and said, "I did this, I'm guilty." And Sosa, I mean, forgot to speak English, so he didn't do it, right? So, I mean, seriously. So, but technically, the Patriots, Kraft, all three of those guys basically served like a punishment. Kraft,
Right.
he didn't fight the first round pick and
Well,
whatever it was, the $1 million. He basically was like, "Here, we're guilty. This is what our punishment is." So they admitted it.
But Kurt, I think you can look at that one of two ways. I think you can look at it from the standpoint of, these guys served a punishment, which means that they 100% did it, which means they shouldn't be in. Or you can look at it from the standpoint of, you can look at it from the flip side of, these guys already served their punishment, so they're, it's sort of a not a clean slate per se, but like they've already done, that, serve that level. So it's more justifiable to have them in as opposed to if they had never that's not how I feel necessarily, but I feel like you could come at that from either route.
It's a topic. I mean, you could talk for. I mean, there's so many different ways, like you're saying, Ryan. There's so many different views and how you see it, how I want to see it. That's what it is.
Let me ask you guys something. Sorry, Ryan. Let's turn it around. If Bonds, McGuire, Sosa, Palmeiro, whoever else you want to, Clemens, if they all admitted that they juiced, they used whatever they used, do you think baseball fans, public, would look at it the same way that the Patriot people admitted? And they say, okay, at least they came out and admitted it. They came clean.
I think because so much of it, like so much of people's decisions have been made off of less than 100% data one way or the other. I think that very few, like if someone comes out and says, like this is kind of an extreme comparison, but it's like the OJ thing. If someone came out and said OJ did this, people are gonna their opinions are not going to change one way or the other. They're either going to say, he was broken into believing this, or he's just going to say, oh, see, I told you he was guilty. Going back to the comparison the reason I'm making that comparison is because people, I think their mindsets from what they've seen and what they believe are already so entrenched that I think if someone comes out and says, I did this or I didn't do this, I don't think it's going to sway them all that much. I think that they're going to say, well, it's old hat. So, I don't think there's a lot of people out in baseball fandom who are like, so on the fence of how they feel about Bonds or Clemens or whoever, that they're going to be heavily shifted by a statement one way or the other. And the other thing I'll say is that you also have the difference, for those people who it matters for, which isn't everybody, but there are also people who will make the argument that, well, some of these players were Hall of Famers before they, were suspected of taking steroids. Barry Bonds was a Hall of Famer before he was suspected of taking steroids. On the flip side, you have people like, I don't remember if it was Sosa, but there was somebody who people said there's no way he would have been a Hall of Famer without the juice. So you've got that as well.
Carson, anything to end that topic?
Yeah, no, I agree with what Ryan is saying, and that's why it's such a touchy subject, because you're going to have the people, no matter if they admitted to juicing or cheating, no matter what happens, they're going to support them whether they like it or not.
Yeah,
you're going to have the guys that are against him because they flat out don't like him. I don't care if he did it or not. I'm supporting him. That's what I believe, and it's almost like politics. You're going to have people that literally just support some guy and they don't care what his track record is because they like him. And it all depends on what you believe is if that's justifiable or what's right or wrong, and that's the way people are going to be for forever.
Yeah, you know what? It's just it's such like it's compelling because like you're saying, it's like you'll get a group who are pro Bonds and those guys. You'll get that group that's not, and like you're saying, you could show them. It's not going to change my mind. They belong in, they don't belong in. All right, so let's do this. We got a couple minutes. Ryan, let's break down the American League. Give me your American League. Who's coming out? Matchups. You want to go through whatever your wild cards. What do you think's coming out of the American League?
All right, sounds good. So
I'm sorry, who's coming out of the American League? I said that wrong. I said what's coming out. It's who's coming out.
All right, so I'll give you the two wild card matchups first. So we'll go Mariners Blue Jays. The Mariners pitching the last month is 10th in the American League. They've been struggling. Toronto arguably has the top lineup in the American League. I think that there's a little bit of a mismatch there, so I'm taking Toronto out of that matchup. Rays versus Guardians. This is, I think, a much more even match. Could go 5 games in my opinion, but Cleveland's been the hotter team of late, and I'll take McKenzie, Bieber, and Quantrill over Springs, Rasmussen, and Kluber. So give me the Guardians there.
And real quick, Ryan, I heard this today. Somebody was saying that don't be shocked if Glasgow comes in as like a little, 2 innings here, 3 innings there. What's your thoughts on that?
Nothing Kevin Cash can do can surprise me at this point.
Okay.
But yeah, and that's the thing with a team like the Rays is it's that they're so unconventional that they may. I mean, for all we know, Mike Zunino may pitch. I don't know, but so just based on what I'm able to actually see right now, I'm still taking the Guardians over the Rays. But like I said, I do think it'll be a much more even match than that Mariners Blue Jays game series, and I do think that could go the max number of games.
All right, we move to the next round then.
Well, I got the National League.
Okay, nationally. Okay.
Yeah, so the Mets Padres, I've got the Mets pretty easily. The Padres almost fell out of October entirely. I think the Mets will have a chip on their shoulder for losing the division to the Braves. And I think their roster is deeper. Pitching staff is, I like them pitching staff better. Phillies Cardinals, not buying either of the teams, honestly, for a deep run, but the Phillies have been hitting and pitching better than St. Louis lately. There seems to be some rejuvenation under Thompson, so I'll narrowly take the Phillies on that one. So that would put the Jays versus the Astros. I think Houston is just too proven at this point for me to take Toronto over them. I'm taking Houston in that series. Yankees versus Guardians. I think the Yankees have a deeper pitching staff, a deeper lineup. As long as the bullpen doesn't blow it for them, I think the Yankees beat the Guardians. Mets versus Dodgers. Any other year I would take the Dodgers, but I think that the Mets, pitching wise, have perhaps the only pitching staff that can hang with LA, and I think they do narrowly beat Los Angeles. Phillies versus Braves. The Phillies will have a nice little run there, breaking their 11-year postseason loss or drought. But I think it'll end here. I think Atlanta beats them, and I think in the World Series, it's the New York Mets emerging victorious over the New York Yankees in the Subway Series rematch of 2000, the year I was born.
Okay. That would be something, Ryan, to watch that again, huh? That would be something.
I'd have to find a way to go to get there.
Go ahead, Carson. What do you want to do? Break down your American League, National League, and what do you think?
Yeah, you got to give me the matchups again.
Okay, Cleveland, Tampa Bay, wild card American League.
Okay, go with the Rays.
All right, Toronto, Seattle.
Toronto.
All right, then we got the Mets and the Padres.
I'm gonna go with the Mets.
Phillies, St. Louis.
I'm gonna go with the Phillies.
All right, then you got Tampa Bay, Yankees.
Oh, I'm gonna go with Tampa Bay.
Toronto, Houston.
Houston.
You got Mets, Dodgers.
I think Paul takes down the Dodgers. I'm gonna go Mets.
Atlanta and Philly.
Atlanta.
Then you got Tampa Bay, Houston.
I'm gonna go with the Blue Jays.
No, I'm sorry. I think you had you had Tampa. Wait, I'm sorry. Did I confuse here? So you got Houston. I'm sorry. So you have the Yankees losing to Tampa Bay, correct?
Yeah.
And then you had Houston. Yeah. So you had Houston or Toronto?
Oh, I'm sorry. I had Houston beating Toronto.
All right. Okay.
Sorry.
So you got Tampa Bay, Houston.
Right. Houston. Yeah.
Okay.
Houston.
And then nationally, you got the Mets. What did you have? The Mets and you had Phillies or Atlanta? I'm confused.
The Mets and the Braves.
Mets and Braves.
I'm gonna go Mets.
So you got, and then you're gonna have Mets and Houston.
I'm gonna go Mets. Paul's gonna be happy.
I don't know. Two people picked the Mets on this
I
panel.
know.
You know what,
The
Paul?
curse.
I'm gonna leave you for last because I'm gonna
All
switch.
right.
I'm gonna switch my paper. I am because you guys sold me on something. So I'm gonna go Tampa Bay. I'm gonna go Seattle. I'm gonna take that pitching Ryan a little bit with Castillo. Then I'll stay in the American League. I would be afraid of Tampa Bay as a Yankee fan, but I think the Yankees do squeak it out. I think Houston gets by Seattle. I think Houston beats the Yankees, and I think Houston goes to the World Series. National League, I'm taking the Mets. I'm taking the Cardinals. I believe the world champion's going to come out of the Met Dodgers. On the paper, I had the Mets. Ryan and Carson, you sold me. I'm changing it. I'm taking the Mets. I'm sorry,
Nice.
I had the Dodgers. I'm
Wow.
taking the Mets. Phillies, Cardinals. I'm sorry. I'm going to take St. Louis to go. Then I'm going to have Atlanta, St. Louis. I'm going to take Atlanta. Can you imagine, though, in the New York area, if you have for the American League Championship Series, Yankees, Astros, and then the National League, Mets, Braves? I mean, would that be just insane? And I think, you know
Crazy.
what? Hey, the Mets got the Braves in Citi Field. The Braves got the Mets this past weekend in Atlanta. Let's see a battle of 7 to see who wins that. I'm going to go Houston, Mets, and I'm going to take the Mets over Houston. Paul, you're going to close this out with are you sweeping the board?
Wow. I could just say I thank you guys, but let's come back down to earth here. I hate to say it as a long-suffering Mets fan.
So
All
the
right,
Mets fan's going to be the only one on the panel not picking the Mets. All right, go on.
I know. What's the odds of that?
So, in the American League, we'll go Rays. We'll go Toronto. All right. Toronto will play
Houston.
the Yankees.
Houston.
Will play Houston. I like Houston, and the Yankees will. It'll be a tough series, but I think the Yankees just barely gets by Tampa Bay.
All right.
'Cause they have no fear against the Yankees.
Yankees, and then Yankees, Houston for the AL crown.
Yeah. Houston, I hate to say it, Ryan, they just have something over the Yankees. I don't know what it is, why they seem to be able to beat them. But in another close series, I think Houston in 7 games beats the Yankees for the. I know. I'm sorry.
Keith
I'm sorry.
Keith is saying Sis says the Mets won't get past the first round. I'm kidding, Paul. All right, National League, Padres, Mets. You gotta go Mets. I mean, come on.
Listen, I will go Mets, but let me tell you guys, for one thing, Hugh Darvish is unbelievable. He has if you check his record, he's fantastic against the Mets in his career. And this year, in 2 games, he had a .64 ERA against the Mets. Okay, so
Wow.
It's not going to be a cakewalk. Plus, I'm hearing that the Mets might juggle their starting pitches where you would think it would be either Scherzer, DeGrom, or DeGrom, Scherzer. They're talking about maybe saving DeGrom and not pitching him until maybe the 3rd game, which, in my opinion, there's nothing to think about. It's either Scherzer, DeGrom, Scherzer. I don't care.
But the Mets get by. The Mets get by.
Yeah.
Okay, so Philly, St. Louis.
I'm gonna say the Cardinals. I think the Cardinals just have something. They would be actually my sleeper, possibly to go to the World Series.
Okay.
But all right. So
Mets, Dodgers.
Mets, Dodgers. As much as I want to see them beat the Dodgers have as good a balanced team as I've seen in many, many years. So unfortunately, I think the great season ends for the Mets. It'll be 6 or 7 games, but the Dodgers beat the Mets.
Atlanta,
And,
St. Louis.
Atlanta's going to beat the Cardinals. Braves have an unbelievable team.
Okay, then you're gonna go Dodgers.
I'm going to go Dodgers over the Braves.
Dodgers over the Braves, and then Dodgers, Houston.
Yeah, and I think the Dodgers have come so far this year where once they get to the series, they're gonna win the World Series.
Guys, Joey Clams is chiming in. I got the Padres plus 165 for this round. I bet it today, so you know where Joey Clams is going.
Nice,
Right.
Joey.
Bryce S is saying my preseason was the Phillies and Blue Jays, with Blue Jays winning it. I don't think the Phillies make it now, but you never know.
What's up, Bryce? Thanks for stopping in.
All right, here we go. Final thoughts. Mr. Carson, you're up first.
Yeah, great show, gentlemen. Looking forward to another fun-filled weekend with football. Looking forward to the MLB. There's something about postseason baseball that just has like a nostalgia factor to it. So I'm looking forward to the postseason for baseball. But yeah, great show, guys, and looking forward to Wits and Wages tomorrow. And yeah, have a good night, everybody.
Yeah, I'll go next, guys. Great show. It was awesome tonight. Again, like, listen, they're saying in October, you know, you have MLB playoffs, NFL football, college football, NBA stars. I think the hockey starts. So it's like one of a kind. And listen, I'm going to be glued in. I mean, Jen and I are doing a live game day show at 7, but then we'll be right back. Can't wait to watch. There's 4 games on Friday. Mets got the 8 o'clock game. I think New York's going to be rocking. And then next week we get into the Yankees. So it's going to be a great weekend of sports. And mine starts tomorrow night with the Colts. Let's go, Broncos. Big one tomorrow night. Mr. Ryan, closing thoughts.
In case you didn't see it before, my shirt says the real 2017 MVP. Jose Altuve was not legitimate. That Astros team was not legitimate. This is going to be Judge's first MVP, should be his second, and he's going to help lead this team. We got Cabrera, we got Brader, we got a bunch of new faces now. I'm looking at Eagles going 5-0. I'm looking at the Yankees starting out hot. Let's go. It's going to be a great month of October.
You're on fire with your teams, huh?
I'm jealous.
And Mr. Paul Rosen, the only person like Ryan suggested that is not picking the New York Mets to win it all.
But I thank you. I thank all of you guys who do and have. And I can only say from your mouths to God's ears. That being said, I'm excited. We haven't been in the playoffs in 6 years. So I am juiced to watch the series over the weekend. The Giants also being in London, 3-1. Sunday morning football, wake up, have your bagel, have your coffee, and watch the Giants play the Packers on Sunday morning. And good luck to you guys Thursday, Kurt, and you guys over the weekend. And we'll see you next week.
Oh, wait, right. Kurt, that reminds me. I have one more thing to say.
Sure.
Go, Pat, go.
There you go. You got to get it in. All right, boys. Have a good weekend, and we'll see you guys next week.